In that timeout.
Zion to Barrett for the lead back, short, off the floor with it, chased down. What a call this is going to be.
On the other way.
Michigan State has it.
You got to squeeze Williamson if you're Michigan State, and watch for his foot speed too.
First one, no.
Michigan State, you got to think of that UCF game, block out.
Second one, he tries to miss it, but it drops after the high bounce.
Gotta give it.
Tillman up ahead, Winston, no one near him, and he's going to come out with it, and Michigan State is headed to Minneapolis.
And Michigan State, like you said, headed to Minneapolis. Welcome to the show. It is Views from the Sideline, April 2nd, 2019, and that is not a bad April Fool's joke. Michigan State is in the Final Four. What's up, guys?
Thank God Duke is gone. They survived one too many times. One too many times.
Exactly. The third time was a charm. What'd you see from that game, Malik? Instant reaction.
Honestly, I only saw like the last 3 minutes of the game because I was at
Wow.
work. I was at work for the entire game.
Work.
So, yeah, man. I saw the last few minutes. It was when it went, I got an alert when it went to halftime, and it was 30-21. And at that point, I assumed, like, all right, it seemed, in my head, I thought, I'm assuming Duke is physically just handling them right now. RJ and Zion are starting to have their way. They're going to somewhat coast through the second half and kind of put a chokehold on Michigan State. But after Mike Krzyzewski, Tom Izzo might be the second best coach in college basketball, and he showed that. I mean, he's been getting rave reviews about his coaching performance in that game and how people think at this point he may be the best coach in college basketball. So,
And that right there, to me, is an example of overreaction. He wins a big game, finally gets over Coach K, and then everybody's like, "Oh, he's the best coach in in the game." Let's stop the overreaction Monday.
I don't think I've seen this many rave reviews from a coaching performance in a very long time.
Don't get me wrong. It was a great coaching performance. It was a great win.
But Tom Izzo's a great coach.
Tom Izzo is a great coach.
It should be expected.
Exactly. To say he's the best coach in the country. Let's take a back seat.
People reacted
like
it was a surprise.
Exactly.
He called so many good
State
plays.
has been playing great basketball since end of January, early February.
This is his type of team.
Everybody's talked about how this is his type, like you said, this type of team. They have a chip on their shoulders. They had Michigan's number all throughout the year. They should be credited with Michigan's demise, in my opinion. I think they kind of shook them a little bit. I know you might disagree, but
that's true. It's
I think they shook their confidence.
If you handle your rival for an entire season, game in, game out, and then you take a game away from them that they probably should have won, that shakes their psyche. Yeah. Definitely.
We'll get into this more too. Is we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament at the end of the not at the end, but second half of the show. But I want Joe, your first just instant reaction to the game. We'll talk about this more, but just quick reaction.
Quick hot take / unpopular opinion. Tom Izzo is still questionably the best coach in the state of Michigan. That's still up in the air.
Yeah.
Just to
I think
simmer people down a little bit.
At this point, after this game, because people are on such a Izzo high.
Right.
I think it's a no doubt right now, but last year when Beeline made it to the national championship, it was a no doubt for people that Beeline was the best.
That's why I say it's always top of mind.
The fact that the two coaches at that great of a level are in the same state is people should just be happy that we get to witness this for a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. But about the game, Michigan State did what they needed to do. Cassius stayed calm, cool, and collected like he always has all season.
Lawyer stayed on the bench.
That's exactly right.
He played his role.
Kenny Goings finally hit some threes, and they forced a bunch of turnovers. They won the turnover match. I think Duke had 17 turnovers to Michigan State's 7, and they just played tough. They tried to stop Zion as much as you can. Obviously, he's going to get his. It's kind of what we talked about. You let him do what he's going to do, but you don't make it easy. And I feel like that's what they did. They got him in foul trouble at times. And after he got his third foul, there was a while where Zion was scared to go up and try to make any play at the ball because he didn't want to get that fourth foul because he knows he's an important piece to that team. And
I think that's maybe what Izzo and the Spartans wanted to do, get him to question himself going to the basket.
And they definitely got in his head. Zion struggled a little bit at times, but the bigger picture, I think, is that I think Coach K really screwed it up. And I know, like, he can't control this part of the game entirely, but I think he should have gotten it in his guys' heads. Zion didn't touch the ball the last 2 minutes of the game. He didn't shoot the ball the last 6 minutes of the game. Number one, undoubtedly unanimous, number one overall NBA draft pick, doesn't have the ball in his hands in the last 2 minutes. That's a problem.
Well, I think, it's Coach K's issue too, but I think it showed a lot that RJ Barrett wants to be that guy.
Right.
RJ Barrett doesn't care about the Zion hype. He still thinks he's the better player. And it's kind of like, I know this is a very big reach that I'm about to make, but I just wanted to try to make the comparison. If you play junior college, it's every man for themselves. It kind of seemed like RJ wanted to be the guy to build his hype a little bit, kind of like people in JUCO do.
I felt like they were still playing high school, where they thought that, they were super dominant. They can take over a game at any point for their team and just win the game by themselves. And that's what RJ seemed to be doing. And, he's not in high school anymore. He's obviously a very good player still, but it's a lot harder to do on the next level. And I don't know if it got into his head. And, I mean, Zion's obviously not going to say anything because those guys are really good friends, and they've kind of been buddy-buddy all season. But, that's what happens when you have a young team like that. So
I also heard Nick Ward didn't play a lot, which is a good thing. If you get all of
I
Xavier
believe he
Tillman,
finished the game, though.
I will say that
the game?
he played efficient minutes. I don't know exactly. I do think he sat a little bit more than normal because Xavier Tillman just is such a good matchup against Duke.
From this point on, it's Xavier Tillman starting.
But
and
Nick
you
Ward
play Nick Ward in certain spots where you need that offense, but Xavier controls the floor when he's out there. His IQ seems to be so far ahead of the other fives he goes against. He plays smart defense. He rebounds hard. He doesn't foul a lot. He's just a smart guy that plays really good basketball. He's going to be a pro in a few years.
There's so many
Maybe
times
after next year.
There's so many times that Xavier Tillman will go up and get a rebound, and I'm like, who is boxing this guy out? How is he always getting these rebounds? And it seems like nobody's boxing him out, but he's just smart. He knows how to get around guys, and he knows where the ball is going to bounce off the rim. That's a sign of a good rebounder.
He's 6'10", 255, 260, and very quick. So
and
if you don't put your full effort and mind into boxing him out the right way, there's no way you're going to get a rebound over him.
And the most important thing is, and it's another key to an Izzo team, he knows his role. He loves going and getting rebounds. He loves just playing defense, and he just loves being that gritty guy for that team. And he knows that it's his role, and the team needs him to do that, and he's accepted that. And that's why he's so integral to their team.
And it's not even just Nick Ward. Everybody knows their role on this team, and everybody plays it efficiently, and everybody plays to help their fellow teammate. And that's what is such a wit. That's why I think at Michigan State is a favorite to win the championship.
They should be. They're that good of a team, and I also think that's a reason why when it comes to Tom Izzo has a stigma now that he can't really coach superstars, and I think that's partly the truth. But
I think it's partly you have to have the right star.
Exactly, but certain coaches, the John Calipari's now Coach K, which that didn't used to be his philosophy, but now it is, bring in the 5 stars and let their talent do the talking.
I mean, when they get paid so much money to bring them in,
Exactly. I also feel like it's hard for stars to be coached.
Yeah,
we've seen it at Duke,
especially when
hasn't always worked.
Especially when you have a certain type of system like Tom Izzo. If those guys don't fit certain roles, like he never really found out what to do with Miles Bridges. Jaren Jackson was so big of a problem that he did what he did. Like certain guys fit certain roles in his system. If you're just a superstar that superstars and doesn't have a specific role, you have a problem in his system, and that's kind of been his thing. But yeah, with teams like this, there's no problems. He does what he needs to
Right,
do.
you
when he
even
needs to
take the
do it.
Kentucky team a couple years back, the Karl Anthony Towns team. They go undefeated the whole season. Everybody's like, oh, they could beat the Sixers at the time that were
Yeah.
really bad?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they could beat the Sixers in the NBA.
Which
And then they-
Calipari does deserve credit because he's the one coach that puts all 5 stars into a system and makes them play the way he wants them to play.
Right. But even that, it doesn't always work out.
Exactly.
And we'll talk more about that at the end of the show. We had to talk about them a little bit because that's the story in Detroit right now. We didn't think that. I want to say we didn't expect MSU to go this far at all from the start of the season.
But our bracket did.
Well, yeah, our bracket did. We did a good job with that. We had them in the champion.
Not the national champion though. We didn't do so good at that.
Yeah, we had North Carolina, but
We'll get
MSU
to it
still-
later.
Yeah, exactly. Lions made a little bit of news. Signed running back C.J. Anderson. Adam Schefter was first to break the news. He joins Kerryon Johnson and Zach Zenner in the backfield. First impressions, Joe. What's your first impression with the signing?
First of all, I'm glad you included Zach Zenner in
I was
there.
about to say, I know that just made you so happy.
He's
just
a
the mentioning
situational
of
guy,
his name.
but he's my guy.
Hey,
those 5 carries a season matter. okay?
exactly. You don't know.
Hey, he's efficient when he gets the ball.
He actually is.
It's another great signing for the Lions. Man, you guys are getting me hyped up again. I hate it.
Yeah,
I'm
hey,
really
Joe,
trying
you know
to
what,
hold
Joe?
off.
It's the
I
off.
will not get hyped for the Lions.
Joe, it's the
My
off-season.
expectations-
I know, but they've made
until I see them, they've made really good moves.
right. That's what I'm saying. They've made a lot of good moves.
They're the Detroit Patriots now.
He's actually a lot older than I thought, or a lot younger than I thought. I thought he was like in his 30s or maybe 30, 31 on the back end of his career, but he's still 28.
Well, and we talked about this in our pre-show meeting. Dude's got to lose some weight.
He's had the weight and he's done well, but it is concerning as he gets older to
Especially
hold that weight.
At this age, and the fact that he came into the Rams organization in the last few games of the season, so he didn't have to get into the best shape of his life.
Right. We haven't seen a full season.
He just
worth.
needed to be the power back they needed. To coming in as the second, maybe first back to start the season, depending on how much they're going to, Kerryon Johnson is probably going to be the first back. So as the second guy, they're going to depend on you on third downs. They're going to depend on you a lot, especially if Kerryon Johnson gets hurt. So
I was going to say, I think this puts a good leash on Kerryon Johnson to
Yeah.
maybe push himself too, knowing that C.J. Anderson is a veteran guy. He's had times where he's like taken a lot of the workload, and I just think it's another good signing by the Lions. I'm going to try to hold off the excitement, but
You know,
I like where they're going.
let's get into that excitement real quick, Joe. What's your
I
expectation?
don't think
Hold
either
on.
of us said we're excited yet.
What's your expectations for Anderson this coming year? What role does he play? Do you see him with the possibility of expanding his role throughout the year?
That all depends.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Malik. It's kind of, he'll be a third down kind of guy, maybe a goal line situations. And it kind of depends on where Kerryon develops and what his health looks like. It's just a nice piece to have as a backup. But I don't know how much. Hopefully they try to use him a lot and, kind of give a different change of pace in their offense, give them different looks. That they can maybe shake up their offense a little bit so they're not as predictable as they were last year. So hopefully they use him a good amount.
I think it depends on how seriously CJ Anderson takes this, because there are a lot of backs in the past few years that thought their weight doesn't matter. They still have the talent. Just put me in and I'll make plays. It doesn't work like that. CJ Anderson, you're 28. We saw you can still make plays, but right now, if you get into the best shape of your life and you come into the Lions and you show out, that will show. That will help this team win, and it'll make Kerryon Johnson look better, because then you can take pressure off of him when he's tired. Bring in CJ Anderson. They can be like a thunder and lightning type of combo.
The Lions and the Lions fans would love to finally have a running back. And if they could have two of them, it'd be great.
It all starts with the most important thing in football, in my opinion, the offensive line, which the Lions have not had a good offensive line since ever. I mean, it's been so long.
They were good enough for Kerryon Johnson to break out last
they
season.
are improving slightly.
They
but
do. They need
How
more
much time
pieces.
did
They need more pieces.
How much time did Stafford have in the pocket on average?
Not much.
Not a lot.
But they are improving in certain aspects.
I understand they're improving in certain aspects. They are trying their best. I can acknowledge that. They're bringing in players to try to solidify that offensive line. For some reason, they can't stay healthy. Every year.
Yep.
They make, our offensive line is ready to go. We signed him, and him. They're going to solidify this offensive line. Finally, Stafford's going to have time to make his throws, not have to be rushed in the pocket. That's going to solve all these offensive problems. They're going to be able to have a running game because the offensive line can hold itself. And every year, 3 weeks into the year, we talk about how this is one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL.
Can't necessarily argue with you on that one.
It's kind of like the Tigers closing situation when they were going through their heyday.
Yeah.
It's not like the Lions haven't tried though.
No,
they've
that's what I said. But
they've gone out and signed the somewhat big free agents that have come from playing really good. You sign. I mean, you get first round offensive line talent, and they end up being duds. So whether it's a bad scouting thing, whether it's a coaching thing, it's a combination of things that haven't really come together.
And a combination.
It's the Lions.
You know what? I'm going to say it's
the
a combination of bad voodoo too. Just like the closers for the Tigers. You bring in so many. Joe Nathan. No one thought he was going to fall off a cliff like he did.
Yeah.
You thought he was going to fall off a cliff and be
Maybe
that
not
bad?
like that, but
he
to an
was
extent.
horrendous, Joe.
Well, yeah.
Being one of the best closers in the MLB to being absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
It's just one of those Detroit
When it hits you,
sports
it hits
things.
you.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
But that's also because they never
Especially as a
worked on their
pitcher.
setup guys. So
Let's talk about some baseball. Lions made a little move with C.J. Anderson, but the Tigers started their season over the past week. They're 2-3 right now, fourth in the AL Central. Of course, it's so early on, 162 games in a year. You cannot be looking at the standings, but I will say I was looking when they were up in the first place in the AL Central after game 1 because that's probably the only time they're ever going to be there. They played. They won their first game against the Blue Jays 2-0, then don't put up any runs the following 2 games.
Didn't Miguel Cabrera get hurt?
yeah, they were concerned that he might have fractured his hand, but those came back that he doesn't have a fractured hand, so we're okay.
And they lost their first game to the Yankees 3-1 yesterday. They play again today. Joe, expectations for this year for our beloved Tigers, even though we understand it's all talked about that this is again probably another rebuilding year. We're not expecting much, probably 65 to 75 if you're lucky, 80 wins.
I was going to say expectations and hopes, don't lose 100 games.
Yeah.
That's always a key when you're a rebuild franchise. Just don't lose 100 games.
But don't you want to get that number 1 pick though?
I mean, it'd be okay, but I mean
baseball's not as important.
Right. Baseball, it's kind of hard. You got so many prospects, so many guys out there, so many people in the farm systems.
Yep.
It's a complicated process.
You're right.
And the Tigers already have a lot of good farm guys right now. Their farm system is built up pretty well right now. And it all depends on how they develop. And that's like one of the hardest things about baseball.
I think
my biggest concern is going to be exactly what they've had problems already with that we've seen. Their offense is going to be difficult to get runs. People are going to have to figure out how to get going because Nick Castellanos and Miguel Cabrera are the only veteran guys that have produced.
I think the Tigers are in a dark spot right now, kind of. I think this might take a while for them to get back on track. We haven't really been positive since the Prince Fielder. Justin Verlander's still here those days. So
we're going back to, the Tigers before they got Verlander and had this crazy upward trend.
Exactly. And the bullpen was crazy.
Yeah.
But
getting back to the 90s. Tigers.
I will say, it was so entertaining to see Jordan Zimmerman, first game out, throw a perfect game through 6. He didn't get the perfect game, didn't get the no-hitter, but he brought the juice. A lot of people have been kind of dogging on Jordan Zimmerman heading into the year, talking about how he wasn't worth the money and all that business. But he showed out his first start. What did you see from that one?
Yeah, he looked good. Obviously, again, it's the first game, but to get an opening day like that, is really nice. So it's a positive. But obviously, with Michael Fulmer undergoing Tommy John surgery, that's a big hit to the starting rotation. A lot of people questioned why the Tigers didn't try to trade him. There was a lot of good offers out on the table, and they decided not to, and now they're kind of paying for it. So the Tigers' rotation is kind of in shambles a little bit. It's not the...
What do you think about... There's a lot of hype about Daniel Norris.
Yeah, I still like the guy.
I still think
I
can
think
be
he's
productive.
He's a solid setup guy. He's great out of the bullpen. I know they started him a few games, I think,
He's
last
still
year.
listed as a starting pitcher.
So he's still starting some games this year. Shows how much baseball I've watched in the past couple of years. But I think he's a good pitcher. I honestly like him in the bullpen because I think Tigers' bullpen is still a mess, and it will be for a while. But, we'll see where it goes, honestly.
Yeah.
It's kind of a toss-up for this team. Any little bit of joy will be great.
And there's going to be some good moments. Like
opening day is
is
Thursday, so that's always a good time no matter what.
And I believe they open up against Kansas City, I believe. And then they also play the Cleveland Indians right after that, after this Yankees series. A player that I'm looking forward to, and I really think is in his prime now, Nick Castellanos. I think he can take a jump this year. We'll see.
He had a good jump last year.
Yeah.
So.
I want to see another big jump. That's really... I think he's a prime candidate to be traded.
Unfortunately, yes, and it's probably going to turn into a JD Martinez syndrome.
And just because the timeline of this team and how they want to build it, that's why I think he's a prime candidate to be traded. Plus, he's one of the few players that probably garners a lot of trade interest. So, I could definitely see a team like the Indians later on in the year, and they're more than likely going to be one of the top two teams in the AL Central, making a push for them. Red Sox, Yankees, they're always trying to buy because
the Tigers are one of those teams similar to what we've seen with like sometimes the Lions and the Pistons, where you trade away a guy and he goes crazy. I mean, Justin Verlander gave us a lot of good years, but as soon as we trade him, he's back on MVP caliber season. Max Scherzer on MVP caliber.
Well, I'm not. I'd take Verlander out of that debate because he gave this franchise so much.
But I guess in the bigger picture, JD Martinez, like I brought up,
yeah,
he was just getting to his spot, and the Tigers decided, we're going full rebuild and we're getting rid of him, and he just has a crazy season in Boston. But that's what you live with.
Yeah. Anybody in particular, Malik, that you're looking forward to watching this year?
This Phillies situation is going to be hilarious to watch because
I think Bryce was booed his first at bat.
Exactly.
But then it's a solo home run and everybody's happy.
Everybody goes crazy. Philadelphia is just a ridiculous.
I was just going to say it, but that's Philadelphia, and everybody knows that's how Philly is.
Watching the ups and downs of that is going to be hilarious. I want to see how the Angels do this year because Trout is going to continue to be one of the greatest of the generation, but will that team improve?
And the contract that he got, he just had a one-up Bryce Harper.
Exactly. And this trend of really good players going to bad teams and just riding it out with good money, I wonder how this is going to change baseball because it seems like this is going to be a thing maybe for the rest of our lives as they're going to keep throwing crazier and crazier contracts and higher amounts of money at these players. And these guys, they're just going to go to bad teams and go, let's see what happens. I'm going to make all this money. Maybe we'll be good one day. That's not really good for baseball.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. Before we move on from baseball, who's your favorite to come out of the AL Central? We don't have to go through everybody because I don't think we all have too big of an opinion on it. But AL Central, who's picking the Tigers?
No.
No.
Who you got? Kansas City, Minnesota?
Tigers might be the bottom of the Central.
I think it's going to be Tigers and White Sox at the bottom, honestly.
The favorites usually, obviously, the Indians at this point.
What about the Twins?
I just don't see the Indians rotation is just so good. It is one of the best rotations in all of baseball.
Plus, they have one of the best skippers in the MLB too.
And they have some of the best young players coming up here. I just don't know how you beat the Indians at this point, to be honest.
And there's not much firepower in the AL Central.
Right.
I think we're all in unison here. Indians more than likely coming out of the AL Central, unfortunately. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we move on from baseball? Phillies are the only undefeated team left in the MLB at 3-0, but Seattle Mariners have looked the most impressive with a 6-1 mark.
With my favorite player, D. Gordon.
While the Tigers are in a dark spot, it's been proven and it's been shown in baseball over the years. If you have a good plan, it only takes 3 or 4 years for you to really turn something around. And also, The Marlins won a World Series in the 90s, fell apart, won another World Series in the middle of falling apart, and then fell apart again. So
Tigers made the World Series when they were not supposed to.
Exactly. Crazy things happen in baseball. This may be the one sport where anything can happen almost any year. One team can just rise up out of nowhere. If you have the right pieces at the right time, it can happen. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
There can be reasons to be positive.
Tigers made the World Series in 2006.
Yeah.
And they had a team nobody expected to make it to the World Series.
The famous Magglio Ordonez homer.
Exactly.
Then the following couple of years, Tigers go all out. And they just
They had
spend,
fantastic
spend,
teams.
and they had great teams.
Couldn't finish it.
Couldn't
though.
do
Yeah.
anything. So
They got so close, but
that's the game of baseball.
let's transition to what is the sport during this time of year. That basketball. The Pistons, 39-38, coming off a big loss at Indiana. They had no Blake Griffin, no Luke Kennard. They lose 111 and 102. Before that, they pulled off two big wins against Orlando, who was essentially tied with them in the 7th spot. Just won that game in a landslide. Everyone looked fantastic. They play Portland. They start off the game 0-13 from the floor, score 11 points in the first half. The halftime score, I believe, was like 34-31 or something like that.
I feel like the Blazers need to be ashamed for losing that game.
Pistons handed them the game.
It was bad.
Don't get me wrong, Detroit played some solid defense.
Right.
But
I mean,
they
you
missed
got to give credit to them.
shots.
But geez, OP.
That's a mixture of both.
yeah.
They held the Trailblazers to 90 points. Somehow they got to 90 points. I don't understand that. Pistons scored somehow 99 without Blake Griffin. So those are two big wins. They have 5 games remaining. The loss to Indiana was pretty big. They could have gained
Makes it a little harder.
Yeah, they could have gained a lot of ground. They currently, I believe, let's look at the standings real
They're a
quick.
game and a half ahead of 9th.
And a half game above Brooklyn for
I
7.
believe so, yeah.
And I think a full game above Miami. Yeah. So what's your take on this, Joe? What do you expect in the final 5 games?
I expect them to make the playoffs at this point.
Do you expect them to stay?
It's still scary, but I think it's very, very, very likely that they're going to make it. They got 5 games remaining. They have to win 2.
And that's it?
I believe so. If my math could be wrong.
Saying that makes it sound even worse.
What?
They have 5 games, just win 2.
I know.
That just sounds like a meltdown.
That's why I said it's
Yeah.
a little bit scary.
that
But
sounds like a meltdown.
I'll help you out here, Malik. So the Nets, Heat, and the Magic are all behind them. I would say the Magic have the easiest schedule, but they only have 4 games left. So the Magic are going to have to probably win 3 of those 4 games, I'm thinking. And then the Heat and the Nets have really tough schedules. I think the Heat have to play the Celtics, who are still vying for her home court against the Pacers. And then they play, I believe, the Raptors and Sixers. Raptors might rest some guys.
They're still playing really good, though.
Sixers, yeah, they have a lot of depth, so they might just still play really well. So who knows what the Heat are going to do. I think they play the Sixers later, too, which I don't know what the Sixers are going to do. They might rest some guys. And then the Nets also have a really tough schedule. They play the Bucks and the Raptors. So it's not as tough, but it's still like top caliber teams could rest their players. So it's
More
kind
than
of a
likely
question
will.
mark. Yeah. The Pistons are playing the Pacers and the Thunder. Big problem is that the Pacers are still trying to get home court in the playoffs. Thunder are trying to not play the Warriors, and they're battling
they're in
with
panic
the Spurs.
mode, which means they could play great, but also means they could fall apart.
Yeah. And Paul George knows the Pistons pretty well.
He's on that list of Piston killers.
Yeah.
He's a superstar.
Yeah.
But he's on that list along with
And then the Pistons play the Hornets, Grizzlies, and Knicks. Now, if you have to win 2 out of those 5 games, again, if my math is correct, Grizzlies and Knicks should be wins. Hornets, I would say,
Charlotte
are
should be
Charlotte should be a win.
You would
at
think
home.
so, but
at home.
okay. It's at home, so that's
Yeah.
good because I was going to say Kemba is
Kemba
another
kills.
one of those guys.
But the rest of that team is not trustworthy.
True. They don't have any big guys to really deal with the Pistons, which is nice. So 2 out of those 5 games, it is scary, but I'm pretty sure it can be done. But that just secures it. Like I said, the other teams behind them play tough schedules. So if they lose any amount of games, it makes the gap bigger. So it kind of
think-
depends on everybody else.
First of all, that Hornets game, there's going to be juice in that building, too, because they're doing the 15th anniversary for the 04 team. So, Ben, Chauncey, Rip, Tay, Sheet are all going to be there. It's a Sunday matinee game at 4. It's going to be close to a sellout or as busy it's going to be at LCA. There's going to be juice in that building. My biggest concern with the Pistons, Blake Griffin. He sat the last 2 games with knee soreness. Last time we heard the terms knee soreness, Reggie Jackson turned into a shell of himself.
Knees are never good in basketball.
And Blake
has
had his best season as an NBA player this year. He's been as reliable as ever. Now, are all those games starting to take a toll on him? He's the most used player in the NBA by usage rate statistics. That's my biggest concern. I'm not concerned about the schedule. I'm concerned about Blake Griffin. If Blake's playing, I think they win 3 or 4 of these games. If he's not playing, I lean
looking
1.5.
at the draft lottery.
I'm leaning about 1.5, 2 games. And Dwayne Casey said today that Blake and Luke Kennard are still day to day. Blake with that left knee, Luke with that right foot. But there is some breaking news into the studio. I wish I had the breaking news sound effect. Unfortunately,
that's not
breaking
news.
Okay, from now on, I'm pointing to Malik for breaking news sound effects. I don't care what it is, but Malik's just gonna make the sound. All right, breaking news into the studio.
I already did it.
Oh, okay. The Washington Wizards have fired their GM Ernie Grunfeld, so they're moving on from him. Owner Ted Leones informed him today. So the Wizards will be looking for a new head of basketball operations.
The Wizards need to look for a new everything, including Seattle.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Whoa, the Wizards' uniforms are clean, though.
I don't care.
The district?
Yeah.
I kind of like those. We need a team in Seattle, though. But anyways, what's your first impression of that? I mean, the Wizards had a bad year. Could be because John Wall just never was healthy. Beal had a great season. Where do the Wizards go with this?
Well, I think you had to let him go because all these years of them being a 4 seed, a 5 seed.
Were they ever a 4 seed? I think they always
they were
underachieved. I think they were highest where they were maybe a 4 seed one year. Maybe.
But several teams that could have won playoff series. You had John Wall and Bradley Beal. Marcin Gortat was playing really good. Nene was playing really good. You had teams that could have possibly made Eastern Conference Finals runs. But they're at the same time, you never had serious depth. So it's always been a team somewhat in the middle, a team good enough to make the playoffs and get to the second round. But besides those 2 superstars, you just have a few solid players and not a strong enough roster. So if you can't build around those 2 superstars and you can never get past the second round, a move has to be made.
Whoever becomes a new GM, new head of basketball operations,
they have a lot of stuff to deal with.
They have a lot of stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
Because they can't. I think for once in the NBA, we might have an untradeable contract in John Wall. Just based on his injuries and the amount of money that dude is making. At one point, he was the highest paid player in the NBA. And that contract goes into effect, I believe, next season. 5 years.
Easily
looked like he added a little bit of weight last year. Coming off an injury, might be adding a little bit more weight. Joe, what do you do if you're Washington?
You blow it up. Got to trade Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
You got to get rid of it all. They've already started. I mean, they got rid of Otto Porter, Kelly Oubre.
That was surprising to me.
Yeah.
The Oubre one was a bad trade, and really bad trade in my opinion.
Yeah.
Otto Porter, I wasn't as upset about because you get Bobby Portis, who I just don't think has gotten the chance.
Yeah, I don't think he's gotten enough love, honestly.
Because when he plays significant minutes, he seems to produce almost every night.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think you just got to blow it up. I think you could get a first-round pick for Bradley Beal.
Oh, 100%.
And I think they need to try to do that this offseason. The longer they wait, the worse it's going to be. There's a lot of teams that are looking to just get over that to that next level. And a lot of teams know that the Warriors are possibly about to falter a little bit this offseason, most likely losing Kevin Durant. So it makes people feel like everybody's got a chance and that the NBA is wide open again. So everybody's trying to make their moves now.
Especially with LeBron missing the playoffs.
So this is the perfect time for the Wizards to get rid of Bradley Beal, try to get as much as they can.
LeBron left the East, makes the East easier to go through, essentially. Wizards can make a couple savvy moves, and all of a sudden they're back on track. That's just how wide open the East is. I mean, you look at the bottom of the East, Pistons at 39 and 38, they're the 6th seed right now. Orlando, of all teams, is still fighting for the playoffs. And Charlotte hasn't been eliminated yet with 5 games remaining, and they're 35 and 42. Just everything is wide open with LeBron out west. KD's uncertainty, I think we're pretty sure he's going to leave this summer. We don't know exactly where.
Especially if they win.
Yeah. I think even if they lose, he leaves too. It just seems like he's checked
Yeah.
out. It seems like he's checked out. We talked about the East playoff race. Let's break down the West playoff picture right now. It's pretty much solidified. Unfortunately, our beloved Sacramento Kings have been eliminated. Shout out to them to having a fantastic season, one of the best seasons they've had in a decade, led by De'Aaron Fox, who's going to be a factor in this league. If they can add another piece to the Kings over the offseason, a significant piece, this team is the playoff team next year.
That should be a 7th or 8th seed.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Maybe 45, 46 wins.
I'm going to say De'Aaron Fox could be a top 5 point guard next year in the NBA.
I'm not gonna go as quick as next year.
I'm extremely high on De'Aaron Fox. I
think
think
there's still a few years of these veterans that are
here's the
still
thing.
playing at that level.
De'Aaron Fox has a little bit of that Russ mentality to him, that he is just going to kill everything he sees and just try to win every single play, every single matchup, every single defensive assignment. He's not as reckless as Russell. He's a better, I believe, playmaker than Russell, or has the opportunity to be a better playmaker than Russell down the road. I just really like De'Aaron Fox, and I think the Kings got a solid one. But the playoff picture as of right now, the 1 seed is Golden State. They have a game lead over the 2 seed Denver Nuggets. Nuggets have a 2.5 game lead over the 3 seed Portland Trailblazers, who still are hanging up there in the top 4, which honestly, I think that's the biggest surprise to me.
I think we get surprised every regular season because they play so well.
They play so well almost every season.
Yeah.
And then they falter in the first round of the playoffs. And right now, the 3-6 matchup is the Trailblazers and the Clippers. I'd pick the Clippers to win that one.
I would too.
But the 4 seed, which is tied with Portland right now, Portland has the tiebreaker, so that's why they're ahead, is the Houston Rockets, who have been making that climb ever since the beginning of the year when they faltered. 5 seed is the Utah Jazz, who again started the season off slowly, got themselves back up. Donovan Mitchell playing fantastic, should have been a Piston. And they have a half game lead over the 6 seed LA Clippers. Clippers are another surprise. They're 16 games over 500. If I told you that at the beginning of the year, would you believe me?
I don't think anybody.
Probably not 16, no.
I think they
in the Western Conference.
I think they would have been a little bit over 500 maybe, but I wouldn't have seen this at all.
Do you think this is one of Doc Rivers' best coaching jobs?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
What he did in Boston, he was given everything he needed to win a championship immediately. This right here,
And when he first came to LA, he had a lot of talent.
exactly. But yeah, this is something different. He's just taking guys that all these players want to prove why they're NBA players, and they want to prove that they're winners. And Doc Rivers is a good enough coach to take that talent that they have and just make them better than what everybody thinks they are. And then LA Lakers, you should be ashamed of yourself for giving up Zubac. he's the center of the future for the Clippers.
That was a terrible trade.
Yeah.
And then 7th seed the Spurs in the playoffs yet again. I don't think any of us picked. Did we? I know I didn't pick them to make the playoffs this year.
I picked DeMar DeRozan to go on a tear. I figured.
I think you picked the Spurs. I think Joey, you were with me in not picking the Spurs to make the playoffs this year.
No, I picked the Spurs.
Oh, never mind. I'm alone on that one. And then OKC is the 8th seed currently. Those two are tied for the 7 and 8 seed, so there could be a lot of movement in there in the next 5 games. All in all, I'd say there's some movement within the 3 to 6 seed in the West and the 8 and 6 seed in the West as well. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we talk tournament?
I think if OKC doesn't get past the first round this year, I think Billy Donovan has to go.
Ooh, that's a take there.
I think it would be best for him to go back to college, where that's his element. When he's in college, he won back-to-back national championships, which isn't an easy thing to do in college. He's a great college coach. There are a lot of college coaches that have gone to the NBA, have been all right. He's been a solid coach. He's had Russell Westbrook, and Russell will carry you to the playoffs a lot of times just through his will. But Paul George goes out for a little bit, and they just fall off completely. Paul George is back now, and it seems like they still don't have the rhythm they used to have. and they don't have a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. So blame has to fall on somebody. That's how the NBA goes. I don't think Billy Donovan has a lot of time left.
Joe, anything you want to talk about before we move to the tournament? Nope. All right.
Fred Hoiberg going to
Nebraska.
I think that's a excellent move for Nebraska.
I think it's an excellent move for Fred Hoiberg.
Really good.
I mean, he is a prototypical college basketball
exactly.
coach.
He helped to build up that Iowa State program to where it's consistently good now because he built it up to it being really good and he cemented a legacy for that program. So going to Nebraska where Tim Miles had some really good years there, he can do an even better job and shock people in a few years at Nebraska.
And he got paid a good amount of money too to go there. So shout out Fred Hoiberg. Getting back in the college game. We knew he was going to do it. We knew he was done with the NBA. He just had to find the right spot. Let's jump into the tournament. We had a heck of a weekend. Sweet 16, Duke beat Virginia Tech by 2.
Okay, can we stop real quick?
What? Yeah.
Malik, please.
Oh.
Did Virginia Tech choke that game? Can you finally agree with us? Because I know Chris thinks that Virginia Tech choked.
The dude that missed the shot choked it. The dude that missed that shot choked it.
They also missed a 3. And they
teams
also
missed
threes. Another shot.
Teams missed threes. Teams missed free throws.
They had 3 chances in the last 30 seconds.
And they choked.
Although Ahmed
is every team that's lost a close game to Duke choked. Every single
one.
Although
the same guy that missed the layup.
Every single one.
The same guy that missed the layup missed a 3 previously. He airballed a 3.
The Louisville game is a choke. That is a choke. You build a 20-plus point lead and you give it up in the last 6 or 7 minutes of a game. If it's competitive all the way throughout and you just can't make a few plays in the end, that's not an embarrassing choke.
You know, I saw a meme on Instagram.
There are always close games where a team prevails and one team can't do what it takes to get it in the very end.
Now, it was the video of Hill missing that alley-oop at the end of the game versus Duke, and it said, this guy has never played 21 with tips, and it shows.
Oh, yeah. No touch whatsoever.
I don't know what he was thinking.
It's like he didn't throw the ball at he caught it and then just let it go.
He acted like they never put time back on the clock because originally they only had 0.6 and then they put it up to like 1.2 or something. You have a full second. You can grab the ball and touch it in.
It was weird.
And he could jump. Like, I don't know why.
He was up there.
He I don't know if he panicked or what.
Moment was too big.
Maybe his hands were too sweaty. He just couldn't.
That was.
Maybe he had some popcorn at halftime.
It lasted that long.
Butterfingers?
He did airball the previous 3.
Ooh.
That was bad. Anyway.
All right, popcorn gate. Popcorn gate.
Anyway,
the rest,
let's leave that one. That's
popcorn gate. I'm talking about it.
That is a terrible take. Let's just move on to the
Sweet 16 wasn't super exciting. There were some blowouts.
MSU took care of business. Gonzaga took care of business. Texas Tech looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Michigan
Kentucky
also
took care of
looked really
business.
bad.
Yeah.
Biggest shock was North Carolina just getting demolished. 97-80 by Auburn.
Auburn they're so hot right now.
I'm so ready for Charles Barkley in Minneapolis this weekend.
That's the most exciting thing.
That is exactly. That's why I've been rooting for Auburn secretly after they knocked out the team I picked to win.
Yeah.
I want to see Charles Barkley just be a fool.
Yeah.
Shout out Charles. And then Virginia beat Purdue 80-75 in a crazy game.
One of the best shootouts in NCAA tournament history.
And somehow, I know we don't talk about sports betting and all that on the show and all those, but how Virginia covered the 4.5 point spread in overtime in a game they had no business being in. If you bet on that game, you guys, I mean, I feel for you. You should not have to go to work this week. That's just how it is. But then moving on to the Final Four, like we said, Virginia is in the Final Four after they beat Purdue 80-75 in the game of the tournament. Carson Edwards, we talked about this in the pre-show meeting. Dude's been fantastic. Joey talked about not buying into the hype of Carson Edwards. Maybe he's just having that tournament streak or is that you, Malik? We're talking about that.
No,
we both kind of.
I've been all in on Carson Edwards since I saw him play as a freshman at Purdue. I knew he was different, but he locked into a different gear near the end of last year and going into this season. And I knew he had these in him.
And he knew he had to be the guy. I mean, he is not shy to shoot the ball and take every shot.
If you don't almost foul him, he has the green light.
And
he can hit a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was going to shoot that last shot at the end of the game no matter what.
Yeah.
He passed the ball, but he knew he was getting it right back. Otherwise, he wouldn't have passed it. That's just the Carson Edwards mentality in this tournament.
We actually have to finally give credit to Garrett for picking Purdue. He was wrong about the Big Ten tournament, but he did pick them to go pretty far in the big tournament. So,
and he was talking about
credit to Garrett.
Credit to Garrett too. Carson Edwards said he was the best player in the Big Ten. I think we have to agree.
Michigan State has an All-American.
They do, and they're doing very well. But I will say Carson Edwards has shown
he's definitely the flashier player for sure.
Yeah. Then there's Auburn versus Kentucky. Again, Auburn made it to the Final Four. We talked about because Charles Barkley. Kentucky kept it close. That was a good game. Texas Tech knocking off Gonzaga. Did you guys see that one coming? I know. Were you guys high on Gonzaga?
I picked Gonzaga to win it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Texas Tech. They're a really impressive team. They showed up for the Big 12.
I picked Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I just it wasn't like, I felt like they were the better team necessarily, but it's one of those gut feelings where I just feel like they're kind of on a roll, and a defensive team like that can always stop big offensive teams, and then they don't know what to do.
All right. Final Four matchups. Let's break them down. Let's start with Virginia versus Auburn. Scheduled to take place Saturday, April 6th. It's the first game of the night of the Final Four. Starts at 6:09 p.m. Joey, I know you're saying you're picking Virginia because that's the team in your bracket. Does Auburn scare you at all?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They beat Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky to get to this Final Four. That is quite the repertoire for a tournament. They have a very underrated coach in Bruce Pearl. I don't think he gets enough love these days.
Yeah, but it's because of specific reasons
right.
that we won't go into.
I know, understand.
Oh, we can go into it, Malik, if you want to.
I do understand.
Dirt, that's all we'll say.
Dirt. However, he's gotten past that. He's a great coach. Gets those guys to work hard every night.
Jared Harper is one of the most underrated point guards in the country.
That guy is so fast, and he can get to the basket at will.
Yeah.
And he showed that in Kentucky. It's a really cool matchup because Virginia is one of the best three-point defensive teams. They stop three-pointers. Auburn is very reliant on the three-pointer. They also like to get out in transition. Virginia is one of the better transition defenses in the country. So that matchup there in that sense is going to be really exciting. And again, it's going to come down to guard play. Harper and Bryce Brown had 50 of their 77 points in their last game. Those guys were electric, and Virginia has some of the best guards as well. Ty Jerome is super good. Kyle Guy's had some games. DeAndre Hunter's had his games, and I think both of these Final Four matchups are pretty exciting the way that the teams kind of mirror each other or are very similar.
I think the speed at which Auburn plays, I don't think Virginia's seen that so far this season out of any team they've played. I think out of the gun, Auburn is just going to get on them. And if Virginia, if they don't hit shots from the beginning, this could be a blowout. Because I think Auburn, they are so confident right now.
And I think Virginia has shown, I hate to use this term because they've made it all the way to the Final Four. But
they've shown vulnerability.
They've shown vulnerability. I'm going to say they limped to the Final Four.
This is exactly what me and Malik talked about the pre-show before you even got here. Me and Malik were talking about how everybody is still on Virginia's
When Virginia
back.
wins the national championship, everybody will still be like,
they limped to the national. They didn't have to face Duke. In the
No. Here's the thing.
They lost to UMBC. That's all that matters.
I think Auburn is going to be the toughest team that they face until the championship game. That's fair to say.
I mean,
Virginia should have lost.
However, that's
should
also
I say should have very.
There was a great chance that they were going to lose that game. But
very close.
But it's March.
Yeah. But it's March. That's true. They
But
almost lost to Oregon.
The tournament does. The tournament does typically get harder as you go farther.
Is that true?
That's usually how it works.
Oh.
But I just feel like people just keep doubting them, and they
are it's Virginia. They have nothing on their
They are just getting by,
and that's exactly what they want you to say.
But in the end, they're winning. And what
they win in the regular season, they're not that talented.
It doesn't matter how you win; it's that you win. It's all about the W.
When Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy shoot the lights out and play smart basketball like they do, the MVP of their team is Kihei Clark. I think that needs to be said because if it wasn't for him coming off the bench and playing the point guard position like he does, they don't have another guy to balance out their system like him. And without Kie Clark, they wouldn't have won that game. I don't know if Ty Jerome makes that pass to Diakite to hit that buzzer beater and go into overtime. Kie, he was completely calm, made that pass without any doubt in his mind. He's only 5'9", 165 pounds. Great defender, too. So he's the X factor for that team. He really is.
I just think, Virginia losing to a 16 seed last year, and, they've faltered a lot in tournaments where they can't even make the Sweet 16, and they're always like a number 1 seed that fails, usually the first number 1 seed out. And now they're the only 1 seed left. There just seems to be something in the water,
And Joe loves this.
However,
because Joe has been talking about Virginia winning it all this year since before the tournament started.
Ralph Sampson is at every game. This is meant to be.
Joey is just living in this glorious state right now because he has the possibility to have all the bragging rights heading into next year.
Have you seen how calm and collected Tony Bennett is on that sideline? Yeah. Man never sweats. I've never seen him sweat, even when they lost last year.
However, I will say that if Auburn does win this game, I think I'm with Chris. I want Auburn to win the championship.
At this point, I want Auburn to win it. I think there's a great chance they win this game.
I was just
There's a really good chance.
Just going to ask you.
I like both these matchups.
I think...
I'm biased. Don't ask me.
So Joe's got Virginia. I'm taking Auburn.
I do think it's close. I do think it's close.
Most games are close in March. I mean,
Right.
It's going to be close for some period of time, whether a team separates itself in the final few minutes due to free throws. You never know, but it's more than likely going to be close. Yeah, I'm taking Auburn too.
Auburn still doesn't have Chuma Okiki, though.
Can you say that one more time for me?
Chuma Okiki.
Yeah. Nice.
They don't, but didn't matter last game. They just kept rolling.
But that's the Kyle Ahrens syndrome. You get one game of, he comes out to the bench.
Plus, there's the factor of let's win it for Chuma.
Right. Now
Can we start hashtag win it for Chuma?
Now it's really settled in that they don't have him. I don't expect Jared Harper and Bryce Brown to score 50 of their points again. It could happen. I just don't expect it with Virginia, the way they play defense.
Michigan State, Texas Tech, 8:49 game on April 6th. Break it down for me, Joe.
This is going to be another good one. Texas Tech has said it multiple times. Chris Beard has said it multiple times. Izzo is his idol. He plays very similar. He likes his team. He's said on multiple accounts that he wants Tom Izzo rebounding to his team. That's how he tells his team to rebound. They watched a lot of Michigan State basketball. Chris Beard knows the ins and outs of his offense and how Michigan State works, and he runs Texas Tech similar to that. They're a more defensive-oriented team than Michigan State. Michigan State, I would say, slightly to the offensive side, but they're very well-balanced, both of these teams. Texas Tech may have a little bit more struggles finding offense, but as Malik pointed out in the Michigan game when we kind of said the same thing, they do have guys that they can go to knock down shots. Jarrett Culver
he's a pro. He's a lot of repeat.
He's incredible. So that matchup right there with him and Cassius Winston, both very calm, collected guys, that'll be exciting.
Does Aaron Henry guard Jarrett Culver?
I would assume so.
Because that matchup is going to be very interesting.
I will say I didn't know much of Jarrett Culver heading into the tournament.
Because I would feel like Cassius may struggle with Jarrett Culver.
Is Texas Tech going to let their point guard Cassius? Because in that case, I think Cassius is going to hit 6 or 7
right.
threes.
That's kind of the...
There's going to be a lot of cross
matchups,
give and take.
Going to be a lot of cross matching.
Right. So it'll be interesting in that fact. But again, the X factor going to be Kenny Goings. If he can keep up what he did in the last game,
I think Tariq Owens might be the perfect match defensively.
That's the thing I was going to say. Tariq Owens is a monster on the defensive end.
Long and athletic.
Yeah. Again, though, he's very similar to a Xavier Tillman. Probably a little more jumpy than Xavier Tillman. A little more lankier too. Xavier's a bigger body,
but he holds down the paint.
Right. Yeah. So another interesting part to this matchup. I think it's going to be a really fun game, and that's why I said I like both of these Final Four matchups that we have.
Michigan State or Texas Tech? Here, before you say anything, answer this question with your head and not your heart.
There's a simple way to pick this game to me.
Here, give Joey I want Joey's answer before you go into that, Malik.
Well, what were you going to say, though?
I just told you. Pick with your
Oh, you just want me to pick with my head instead
Not
of
your
my heart?
because I know your heart says MSU. So I want you to give a logical reasoning for the people.
I honestly think that Texas Tech might win this game.
So you're picking Texas Tech.
Yeah. And only because, I mean, granted, you could have said the same thing about Duke that, how is Cassius Winston going to play against Trey Jones? He's one of the best defensive point guards in the league, and that he would stop him. Cassius finishes with 20 and 10. I just feel the way that Texas Tech runs their defense and how they're so defensive oriented that it could throw Cassius a little bit off. And it's something that he's never really seen, I don't think, the way that they play defense. And with Tariq Owens in the paint, I don't think he'll be able to get to the basket necessarily as easily. Again, he's one of those guys that figures it out. Somehow he gets there, so he might have no problem. But that's just my fear. And then, again, Kenny Goings being the key guy, and like Malik said, they'll probably have Tariq Owens on him. And I feel like he might shut Kenny Goings down. And that's a little bit spooky. The only bright side to that is that it pulls Tariq Owens out of the paint.
Yeah.
But I just have a bad feeling that Texas Tech could win this game.
Malik?
Most of the times when you have equally tough teams, it comes down to who's the team with the pro or the most pros. But Michigan State just beat a team with 3 lottery picks.
Three top 8 picks in the next round?
That philosophy goes out of the window completely. I feel like Michigan State should win this game. But like Joey said, this Texas Tech team is a team that they haven't seen. They haven't seen anything like it all season.
Texas Tech has thrown every team that they've played out of their element.
Exactly.
They made Michigan
They
play
made
their
everybody
worst of
completely
the season.
uncomfortable.
Gonzaga played their third and second worst percentages of their entire season. They just throw teams off.
Is that step 1 is make you uncomfortable, and then step 2 is
Punch you in the gut.
And then when their shots start falling, because they have shot makers on the bench and in their starting 5, that's when it starts to get ugly. Because when you're out of your element and they're going at the same time, there's almost no way to gain momentum again. I just have a feeling Michigan State is going to win it somehow.
They're on
Tom Izzo's pulling these games.
They do
out,
have
man.
kind of that magic going for them right now.
Tom Izzo, he's figuring out a way, and his players are playing the best basketball they'll probably ever play in their life.
I also don't think that Michigan State's going to necessarily buy into their win against Duke. I think Tom Izzo is going to do a really good job of making sure that they're mentally ready.
I think, sorry to cut you off, but I think there's
good.
some teams, some MSU teams in the past that would have been like, oh yeah, we beat Duke, we can beat anybody, and kind of get over their heads. Not this team. This team has had a chip ever since February. A chip that keeps them going. Like Malik said, there's something about this team. Texas Tech does scare me, but I'm going to say the Spartans. I'm picking the Spartans too.
And I think it goes back to Cassius. He has been very calm and collected this entire tournament, and that's been super impressive to me.
Yeah. I feel like if they get down, they're just going to be calm. Matt McQuaid will hit a 3. Cassius Winston will go on a little run, and then it'll just be back to a regular game. Like they figured out ways all season. And then their freshmen have been coming off the bench and making even more plays. So they just, like I said, they just figure out ways to get it done.
Well, according to us, it's going to be MSU versus Auburn. I mean, we'll find out next week what it ends up being.
Going against both my picks.
Both your picks. But that'll do it for the show this week. Views from the Sideline, April 2nd. Chris Pappas, Joey Tysick, Malik Hill. We'll see you guys next week for a recap of March Madness
and the national championship.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Let's hope things don't get too spooky for the Pistons. This could be an ugly way to end the season.
Go Pistons.